Call for a doctor, J.J. Cale. Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting on 800 stations, on Pacifica and NPR stations, low-power FM, college and community radio stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations, and both TV satellite networks, Dish Network Channel 9415, Free Speech TV 9410, Link TV, and DirecTV Channel 375. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Our headlines are also available in Spanish for any radio station to take, as over 200 are. I'm Amy Goodman, as today we look at health care. Democratic lawmakers are close to unveiling new legislation on health care reform they hope to pass before the August recess. On Monday, House Ways and Means Committee Chair Charles Rangel said Democratic Congress members are uniting around a plan that would include a mandate forcing employers to offer insurance or face penalties. Uninsured Americans would also face fines if they chose not to purchase coverage. The proposal would also offer a public exchange where consumers could shop for insurance online. Rangel says the exchange would offer a government-run public insurance program. The plan would also impose new restrictions on insurance companies, barring the denial of coverage based on pre-existing conditions. Democratic Senator Ted Kennedy has drafted a Senate proposal also centering around imposing mandates on employers. President Obama is expected to host a group of Democratic Congress members at the White House today. The meeting comes 1 week after Obama said he would consider supporting a mandate-based approach to health care and the creation of a public insurance option. On Monday, a group of Republicans wrote a letter to President Obama opposing public insurance, saying, quote, forcing free market plans to compete with these government-run programs would create an unlevel playing field and inevitably doom true competition. The letter was signed by all Republican members of the Senate Finance Committee except Maine Senator Olympia Snowe. In their comments on health care, President Obama and Democratic leaders have focused on enormous health care costs that they say must be reined in, but their plans would still leave much of the U.S. health care system in the hands of for-profit insurance companies that critics say account for most of the unnecessary spending. I'm joined now by two guests in Washington, D.C. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Earlier this year, he introduced the American Health Security Act of 2009, which would establish a single government program to guarantee health care to all Americans, including the 46 million currently uninsured. Senator Sanders is the longest-serving independent member of Congress in American history. And joining us from St. Louis, Missouri, is Roseanne DeMoro. She's executive director of the California Nurses Association, which has been a leading advocate for single-payer health care. Last week, she took part in a meeting arranged by Senator Sanders with Senator Max Baucus, who's excluded single-payer voices from the pivotal Senate Finance Committee hearings on health care reform. Let's start with you, Roseanne DeMoro. This issue of the exclusion of single-payer voices, what came out of the meeting?
Well, it was interesting going into the meeting. We had protests. There were a series of protests in the Senate Finance Health Committee discussions where registered nurses and physicians had basically walked out, spoke out, walked out, had been arrested. So there were 13 people who were arrested. Because of that, Senator Sanders was able to actually achieve a meeting for us. We have been basically single-payer activists, which means basically people who think that we should have a more sane way of doing healthcare in this country, have been excluded. It's been this conspiracy of silence by Congress, by the Obama administration, and ultimately you have all the institutional players at the table, but the people who are excluded are the people who are the voice of the people. So, and I'm sorry for so much background, but
well, before you go to how Senator Baucus justified excluding them, let's hear a clip from one of the Senate Finance Committee hearings where the doctors and nurses and others were arrested one by one.
Mr. Chairman.
The people at this table have failed Americans for 30 years.
We'll stand in recess until the police come in order.
Single-payer at this table. Health care is a human right. We want guaranteed health care. No more blue crosses, double crosses. We want guaranteed health care. No more Aetna. Thank you. No more Aetna or Cigna bosses. We want guaranteed health care. We want to see our doctors when we need and get our pills that are guaranteed. We're tired of private insurance free.
One of the 13 people are calling themselves the Baucus 13 at one of the raucous Baucus caucuses. Roseanne DeMoro, how did Senator Baucus explain himself, why these voices were excluded?
Well, his demeanor was somewhat apologetic. He actually had said he regretted not having single payer at the table. But what was the most interesting to me, and it was particularly upon reflection, was that what he said was Barack Obama wants a victory. And he said it to us in such a way that later I realized it was as though he was saying, didn't you get the memo? I mean, we're all supposed to fall in line here. And I realized, with the exception of Senator Sanders, that there's been this conspiracy of silence, ultimately, that everyone's participated in. The Obama administration has been very adept at getting the institutional players who have premier health insurance at the table to talk about what the rest of America gets. And ultimately, it's an intentionality with respect to excluding the voice of millions, or the majority of Americans, who had either inadequate health care, no health care, and ultimately were not welcome into the debate, which is absurd. And so the registered nurses and the physicians across this nation are outraged, and they see what happens with this disgraceful insurance industry at the apex of power, and they see that basically this is a sham. I mean, what's going on in Washington, D.C. is basically a disgrace. And Senator Baucus was, I think he was actually somewhat dumbfounded about the fact that he found himself in the middle of what appears to be a struggle between the people now, the voices of the people, and the Obama administration. That's the feeling that I really very much came away with.
Senator Bernie Sanders, how has it happened that single-payer voices have been excluded? And this week, as President Obama makes a major push for health care, for some kind of public plan, what is your assessment of it?
Well, I think Roseanne is right in her assessment. Single-payer has been excluded because if we are successful through a single-payer effort in providing quality, comprehensive, universal health care to every man, woman, and child, there are no more private insurance companies in this country, and the prices that the pharmaceutical industry charge us will go down. So you have the drug companies, the insurance companies, the medical equipment suppliers, who today make huge amounts of money, billions and billions of dollars, off of health care, fighting us in an unrelentless way through lobbying, campaign contributions, and advertising to make sure that the system, the function of the system, is to make profits for the private insurance companies rather than quality health care to all people. And Amy, you cannot begin to imagine the power of these special interests who spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying and campaign contributions on the process. Now, I think, on the other hand, what more and more Americans understand, what physicians understand, as Roseanne indicated, what nurses understand, is that the current system is now dysfunctional. We are wasting close to $400 billion every single year on unnecessary administration, on high CEO compensation packages, on outrageous profits for the insurance industry. A few years ago, a guy named William McGuire of United Healthcare, he was given $1.6 billion in stock options at a time when 46 million Americans have no health insurance and the cost of health care is soaring. So I think what more and more Americans understand is we need a fundamental overhaul of our system. We need one payer to provide comprehensive, cost-effective health care to all of our people. But when you do that, when you move forward in that direction, you are challenging just enormously powerful special interests who have undue influence in Congress. So what, as Roseanne indicated, that's just not a discussable issue. We'll push that off, and we'll figure out how we can tweak the system here, how we can tweak the system here, how we can help people get insurance, but not get to the basic reason as to why our system is so costly and wasteful.
You're talking about tweaks. I want to talk about tweets in a minute. First, Saturday, President Obama focusing on health care reform in his weekly radio address and internet address, which is now videotaped.
Simply put, the status quo is broken. We cannot continue this way. If we do nothing, everyone's health care will be put in jeopardy. Within a decade, we'll spend $1 out of every 5 we earn on health care, and we'll keep getting less for our money. And that's why fixing what's wrong with our health care system is no longer a luxury we hope to achieve. It's a necessity we cannot postpone any longer. The growing consensus around that reality has led an